You know what hurts more than being poor? Being treated like you're worthless by the one person who promised to love you forever for 7 years. I cooked his meals, washed his clothes, raised his children, and smiled through every insult he threw at me. He called me useless. He told me I was lucky he married me. He made me ask permission to buy a $5 coffee, and the whole time I was sitting on a fortune he couldn't even imagine. This is the story of how I went from being Marcus Thompson's invisible wife to becoming the woman who watched him beg for a second chance while I signed papers that would change everything. But let me start from the beginning, because trust me, this story, it's wilder than anything you've seen on Netflix. I met Marcus Thompson in the summer of 2015 at a coffee shop in downtown Chicago. I was 24 years old, working as a receptionist at a small law firm, and honestly, I was lonely. My parents had passed away in a car accident when I was 19. No siblings. No close relatives. Just me, a small apartment, and a job that barely covered rent. What I didn't know then, what nobody knew, was that my father had been quietly building something incredible before he died. But I'll get to that later. Marcus walked into that coffee shop like he owned the place. Tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly paycheck. He was 31, worked in commercial real estate, and had the kind of smile that made you forget your own name. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, gesturing to the chair across from me. It wasn't. And just like that, my life changed forever. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I missed. The way he talked about his ex-girlfriend like she was crazy. How he mentioned his salary within the first 10 minutes of conversation. The subtle way he looked at my worn-out shoes and asked, "So, what do you do for work?" But when you're lonely, really, truly lonely, you see what you want to see. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. It wasn't romantic. He didn't get down on one knee. We were eating dinner at his apartment, and he just slid the ring across the table like he was passing the salt. "I think we should get married," he said. "You're not high maintenance, you're pretty enough, and honestly, I'm tired of dating. It's pretty enough." That should have been my first clue, but I said yes, because I thought having someone was better than having no one. God, I was so wrong. The first year wasn't terrible. Marcus worked long hours. I kept the apartment clean, and we existed in a kind of peaceful routine. He wasn't affectionate. But I told myself that was just how some men were. Then I got pregnant. I thought a baby would bring us closer together. I imagined Marcus holding our child, looking at me with love and gratitude. I pictured family dinners and weekend trips to the park. What I got was very different. "Are you sure you want to keep it?" he asked when I told him. "Kids are expensive, Alina. And let's be honest, it's not like you contribute much financially around here." I cried for 3 days straight, but I kept the baby. Our daughter Lily was born in March 2017, and she became my entire world. Marcus, on the other hand, saw Lily as an inconvenience. A loud, expensive inconvenience that interrupted his sleep and his social life. "Can't you keep her quiet?" He'd snap at 3 a.m. when she cried. Some of us have actual jobs to go to. I stopped working after Lily was born. Marcus said it made more sense financially. Daycare was expensive, and my salary wasn't worth much anyway. At the time, I thought he was being practical. Now I know he was isolating me. Within 2 years. I had no income, no car of my own, and no friends outside of his social circle. I asked for money like a child asking for allowance. $10 here, $20 there. What do you need it for? He'd always ask, scrolling through his phone without looking at me. "You don't go anywhere." He was right. I didn't go anywhere. Because I couldn't. Everything changed on a random Tuesday in September 2019. Lily was at preschool. Marcus was at work, and I was doing what I always did. Cleaning, cooking, existing. The mail came around noon, and I almost didn't check it. Bills were Marcus's territory. I wasn't allowed to worry about finances, but something made me walk to the mailbox that day. Call it fate, intuition, or just dumb luck. There was an envelope addressed to me. Alina Vasquez, my maiden name. The return address was a law firm in Phoenix, Arizona. Hartley, Morgan and Associates. My hands shook as I opened it. Asterisk, dear Miss Vasquez. Asterisk, asterisk, we have been attempting to reach you for the past 3 years regarding the estate of your late father, Ricardo Vasquez. Our records indicate that you are the sole beneficiary of his holdings, which include intellectual property rights, investment accounts, and real estate. Asterisk, asterisk, please. Contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss the transfer of these assets. Asterisk. Asterisk, the current estimated value of the estate is approximately $47.2 million. I read that number 3 times. Then I sat down on the kitchen floor and laughed until I cried. $47 million, my father, the quiet mechanic who drove a 15-year-old truck and wore the same jacket every winter, had been worth $47 million. How? I had no idea. But I was about to find out. I called the law firm the next day while Marcus was at work and Lily was at school. My voice was shaking so badly that the receptionist asked if I was okay. I received a letter, I managed to say, about an inheritance from Ricardo Vasquez. There was a pause. Then, Ms. Vasquez, we've been looking for you for a very long time. Please hold for Mr. Hartley. David Hartley was my father's attorney, and over the next hour, he told me a story I never knew existed. My father, Ricardo, had immigrated from Mexico when he was 18 years old. He worked as a mechanic for 30 years, saving every penny he could. But in his spare time, he tinkered. He invented DOT in 2008. He created a small component, a valve system for industrial machinery that turned out to be revolutionary. He patented it quietly, licensed it to 3 major manufacturing companies, and never told a soul, not even my mother. Your father was a very private man, Mr. Hartley explained. He wanted to surprise your mother when he retired. He was planning to tell her on their 30th wedding anniversary. But then, the accident. It happened 6 months before that anniversary. He had a will prepared, Mr. Hartley continued. Everything was left to you. But we couldn't find you. You'd moved, changed your name when you got married, and we had no current contact information. It took us 3 years of searching. 3 years. 3 years of Marcus telling me I was worthless, while $47 million sat waiting for me. What happens now? I asked. Now, Mr. Hartley said we transfer everything to your name. And Ms. Vasquez, I'd recommend keeping this information private until the paperwork is complete. Inheritance can complicate relationships. He had no idea. I didn't tell Marcus. I know what you're thinking. He was my husband. We were supposed to be partners, legally, depending on the state. He might even be entitled to some of it. But here's the thing about being treated. It's like nothing for 4 years. You start to see things clearly. You start to notice patterns. Marcus didn't love me. He'd never loved me. I was convenient. I was controllable. I was his housekeeper, his cook, his nanny. And occasionally, when he felt like it, his wife and I knew in my bones that if I told him about this money, everything would change. But not in the way you'd hope. He wouldn't suddenly see my worth. He'd see my bank account, so I stayed quiet. I flew to Phoenix while Marcus was at a conference in New York. I told him I was visiting an old friend. He didn't even ask which friend. Mr. Hartley walked me through everything. The patents, the licensing agreements, the investment portfolios my father had built. He introduced me to a financial advisor, an estate planner, and most importantly, a family law attorney. Just in case, the family law attorney said with a knowing look, Arizona is a community property state, but Illinois, where you live, is an equitable distribution state. And since this inheritance is in your name alone, and your father died before your marriage, it's considered separate property. Your husband has no legal claim to it. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. But, she continued, if you commingle the funds, put them in a joint account, use them to buy joint property that could change. You need to be very careful. I was very, very careful for the next 2 years. I lived 2 lives. In one life, I was Elena Thompson, the broke, Invisible housewife who asked her husband for grocery money and wore clothes from the clearance rack. I drove our old Honda Civic, clipped coupons, and smiled when Marcus complained about how expensive everything was in my other life. I was Alina Vasquez, the millionaire who was quietly taking online business courses, meeting with financial advisors, and planning her future. I rented a small office space downtown under my maiden name. I started a consulting business. I invested carefully. I also started documenting every cruel word Marcus said. I wrote down every time he insulted me in front of his friends. I noted it. Every time he grabbed my arm too hard or threw something across the room in anger. I recorded it. Not because I was planning to divorce him. Not yet. But because I was starting to remember who I was. And I was starting to get angry. It happened on Lily's 5th birthday. I'd planned a small party. Just a few kids from her preschool, some cake, and decorations. Nothing fancy, because Marcus had given me a strict budget. $50, he'd said. That's more than enough for a kid's party. She won't even remember it. I made it work. I baked the cake myself, made decorations from construction paper, and found party supplies at the dollar store. Lily was thrilled. Her little face lit up when she saw the unicorn theme. And she hugged me so tight I thought, I might cry. Marcus was supposed to be there at 3 p.m. The party started at 2. He showed up at 4:30. Smelling like whiskey, with a woman's phone number written on his hand. Daddy? Lily ran to him, but he brushed past her to get a beer from the fridge. Sorry I'm late, he said to me, not sounding sorry at all. Work thing ran over. It wasn't a work thing. I could see the bar receipt sticking out of his pocket. But what broke me, what finally, completely broke me, was watching Lily's face. That moment when she realized her father didn't care about her birthday. That flash of hurt in her 5-year-old eyes before she forced a smile and went back to her friends. No child should learn that lesson so young. No child should know that kind of disappointment. That night, after Lily was asleep and Marcus was passed out on the couch, I made a phone call. Mr. Hartley, it's Alina. I'm ready to proceed with the plan. The thing about leaving a controlling husband is that you can't just pack a bag and walk out the door. Not if you want to protect yourself. Not if you want to protect your child over the next 6 months. I prepared for battle. Quietly, methodically, like a general planning an invasion. First, I met with a family law attorney again. Her name was Sandra Chen, and she became my lifeline. She reviewed my documentation, listened to my story, and didn't flinch once. You have a solid case for divorce, she said. But more importantly, you have a solid case for full custody. His behavior, the drinking, the financial control, it all builds a picture. Do you have witnesses? I did. Marcus's sister Rebecca had seen him grab my arm at a family dinner. Our neighbor had heard him screaming at me through the walls. And Lily's preschool teacher had noticed the way she flinched when loud men spoke near her. Good, Sandra said. Now let's talk about timing. The timing had to be perfect. I needed to protect my assets, secure housing, and file papers all at once before Marcus had any chance to retaliate. We set the date for January 15th, 22 to dot, in December 2021. I did something that would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier. I bought a house. Not just any house. A beautiful 4-bedroom Victorian in Evanston, 20 minutes from our apartment. It had a garden, a breakfast nook, and a bedroom for Lily with a window seat where she could read. I paid $1.2 million in cash under my maiden name. Through a trust that Mr. Hartley helped me set up, Marcus had no idea it existed. I also opened new bank accounts, changed my mailing address for all inheritance-related correspondence, and enrolled Lily in a new preschool that would start in February. Every night I'd come home and play my role. The tired wife. The nagging woman who complained about the grocery budget. The invisible person Marcus had married. And every night I'd tuck Lily in, kiss her forehead, and think, asterisk soon, baby. Soon we'll be free. Asterisk January 15th was a Saturday. Marcus had plans to golf with his buddies, which gave me the morning to pack. I didn't take much, just clothes. Lily's favorite toys, important documents, and the few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to my mother. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter at noon. I loaded Lily into the car and told her we were going on an adventure. "Where are we going, Mommy?" "To our new house, sweetheart. Just you and me. It's going to be wonderful." She believed me. Kids have a way of sensing when something good is coming. Marcus got home around 5 p.m., sunburned and annoyed because he'd lost $50 on the golf course. I know this because Sandra had arranged for a process server to meet him at the door. "Marcus Thompson." The server asked. "Yeah? Who's asking?" "You've been served." The divorce papers were in his hands before he even understood what was happening, and then his phone rang. It was me, Alina. "What the hell is going on?" "Where are you?" "I'm somewhere safe," I said, my voice steady for the first time in 7 years. "And I'm not coming back. You'll find my attorney's information in the papers. I suggest you read them carefully." "You can't do this," he sputtered. "You have nothing. No money, no job, no goodbye, Marcus." I hung up. And I finally let myself smile. The next few weeks were chaos. Marcus called constantly, sometimes begging, sometimes threatening. He showed up at my old workplace, not realizing I hadn't worked there in months. He called my distant relatives, trying to track me down. He even hired a private investigator. But the pie couldn't find me because all my new records were under my maiden name, hidden behind trusts and LLCs that Mr. Hartley had carefully constructed. Meanwhile, I was settling into our new life. The house in Evanston was everything I'd dreamed of. Lily had her own room with the window seat. I had a kitchen where I could cook without asking permission. We had space to breathe. And I had money. Real, actual money that I could spend without someone interrogating me. The first time I bought groceries without checking prices, I almost cried in the produce aisle. Do you know what it's like to pick up an avocado? A simple $2 avocado without fear? It felt like freedom. Our first custody hearing was in March 2010. Marcus showed up with a cheap lawyer and an expensive suit, clearly trying to project success. I showed up with Sandra Chen and quiet confidence. "Your Honor," Marcus's lawyer argued, "my client has been the sole provider for this family. Ms. Thompson has no income, no assets, and no ability to care for their daughter. We're requesting full custody with supervised visitation for the mother." Sandra stood up. "Your Honor, if I may present Exhibit A through F." She handed over my documentation. For years of abuse, financial control, and neglect, all carefully recorded. "Furthermore," Sandra continued, "my client is fully capable of caring for her daughter. She has stable housing, significant assets, and the support of family and friends." Marcus's lawyer laughed. "Significant assets. Your Honor, this woman couldn't afford groceries 6 months ago." "Actually," Sandra said, pulling out another folder, "my client is worth approximately $47 million. Here is documentation of her inheritance, held in separate property trusts that predate the marriage." The silence in that courtroom was deafening. I watched Marcus's face go from confusion to shock to absolute fury. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "What?" "That's impossible," he finally said. "She's nobody. She's nothing." "Mr. Thompson," the judge said sharply, "you will address the court through your attorney." Marcus couldn't help himself. "This is a scam. She's lying. There's no way she..." "Mr. Thompson." He finally stopped, but his eyes never left me. And for the first time, I saw something new in them. Fear. After the hearing, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. "You need to explain this to me," he demanded. "Where did that money come from? How long have you had it?" I looked at this man who had made me feel worthless for 7 years, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just ... nothing. "My father left it to me," I said calmly. "He patented some inventions. I found out about it a few years ago." "A few years?" His face went red. "You've had this money for years and you didn't tell me." "Why would I? I'm your husband. And you treated me like I was nothing." I adjusted my purse on my shoulder. "So I acted like I was nothing. It was easier that way. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Alina, wait. Let's talk about this. Maybe we were both wrong. Maybe we can work something out, Marcus. Stopped him with a look. I'm not interested in working anything out. I'm interested in raising my daughter in a home where she's loved and valued. And you were never going to give us that. I walked away, and I didn't look back. Over the next few months, Marcus's attitude shifted dramatically. The threatening calls stopped. Instead, I got flowers, apology texts, handwritten letters delivered to my attorney's office. I didn't realize what I had, he wrote. Asterisk, I was stressed about work, about money. I took it out on you, and that was wrong. Please give me another chance. We can start fresh. Think about Lily. Asterisk, it was almost funny. For 7 years, I begged him for scraps of affection, and he'd given me nothing. Now that he knew about the money, suddenly he was full of love and regret. But I knew the truth. He didn't want me back. He wanted the money back, and that wasn't happening. Sandra advised me to keep the letters as evidence of his character. When someone only shows up after they find out you're wealthy, it tells the court exactly what their priorities are. The judge agreed. At our final custody hearing in June 2022, I was granted full custody with supervised visitation for Marcus every other weekend. He cried in the courtroom, actual tears running down his face. But they weren't tears for Lily or for me. They were tears for the life he'd just realized he'd lost. That summer. Lily and I took our first vacation. I'd never been able to travel before. No money, no freedom, no options. But now we had everything. We went to California. Disneyland first, where Lily met every princess and ate her weight in churros. Then San Diego, where we watched sea lions and collected shells on the beach. Then up the coast to Monterey, where we stayed in a little hotel overlooking the ocean. One evening, while Lily was asleep, I sat on the balcony and watched the sunset. I thought about my father, the quiet man who never asked for recognition, who worked his whole life building something incredible, just to surprise the people he loved. I wish you could see me now, Dad, I thought. I wish you could see that I'm finally okay. A shooting star streaked across the sky. And maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was something more. But I chose to believe it was him, telling me he was proud. The divorce was finalized in August 2022. I walked out of that courthouse as Alina Vasquez once again. No hyphen, no Thompson, no connection to the man who had tried to make me small. And then I got to work. The consulting business I'd started quietly. I threw myself into it fully. I hired a small team, rented a proper office space, and started taking on bigger clients. My specialty was helping women-owned businesses secure funding and navigate growth. It felt appropriate given everything I'd been through. I knew what it was like to be underestimated. I knew what it was like to have potential that nobody recognized. Within a year, the company was profitable. Within 2 years, we'd helped over 100 women launch or expand their businesses. And my father's patents. They kept generating income. The licensing agreements he'd set up were solid. And Mr. Hartley had negotiated renewals that ensured a steady stream of royalties for the next 15 years. I wasn't just rich. I was building something meaningful. The best part of all of this wasn't the money, or the success, or the freedom. It was watching Lily thrive. In our old life, she'd been a quiet, anxious child. She tiptoed around Marcus, never knowing what mood he'd be in. She flinched at loud noises. She apologized constantly, even when she'd done nothing wrong now. She was transforming before my eyes. She joined a soccer team and turned out to be surprisingly good. She made friends, real friends, not just kids whose parents Marcus wanted to impress. She started sleeping through the night without nightmares, and one day, about a year after we'd left, she said something that made my heart stop. "Mommy, I like our new house. I'm glad, sweetheart. It feels safe here." She looked up at me with those big brown eyes. I wasn't always safe before, was I? I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. "No, baby, but you're safe now, and I promise you'll always be safe with me." She hugged me back, And we stayed like that for a long time. That moment was worth more than any amount of money. In the world in 2023, I started a foundation in my father's name, the Ricardo Vasquez Foundation for Innovation and Opportunity. Its mission was simple: provide grants and mentorship to first-generation immigrants and their children who wanted to pursue education or entrepreneurship. My father had come to this country with nothing and built an empire in secret. I wanted to help others do the same, except not in secret. I wanted them to be celebrated. The foundation funded scholarships, small business grants, and innovation incubators in underserved communities. We partnered with universities, local governments, and established businesses to create pathways for people who'd been overlooked. At our first annual gala, I stood on stage and told my father's story publicly for the first time. "He was a mechanic," I said, looking out at a room full of donors and supporters. "He drove an old truck and wore the same jacket every winter. But in his spare time, he invented something that changed an entire industry. Nobody knew. Nobody celebrated him while he was alive. And I think that's wrong." I paused, feeling the weight of the moment. So this foundation exists to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else. To find the quiet geniuses, the hidden innovators, the people working in obscurity, and to lift them up. To tell them their dreams matter. To tell them they matter. The applause was thunderous. But more important than the applause was the email I got the next day from a young woman in Arizona, Ms. Vasquez. She wrote, "I'm a first-generation college student, and I've been working on an invention in my dorm room. After hearing your father's story, I finally have the courage to pursue it. Thank you for showing me what's possible." That email made everything worthwhile. I was building my new life. Marcus was destroying his. The divorce had rattled him. He'd lost custody, lost his meal ticket, and lost his sense of control. In response, he did what weak men often do. He made everything worse. He started drinking heavily. His work suffered. He went through 3 girlfriends in 2 years, each of whom left when they realized he was broke and bitter. Because here's the thing about Marcus. He was never actually successful. He'd had a decent job in commercial real estate, but nothing special. His confidence had always been a performance, without me there to manage the household. Pay attention to the budget and keep things running smoothly. Everything fell apart. He got fired in late 2023. I heard about it through the grapevine, our old mutual friends, who had slowly started reaching out to me after they realized I wasn't the villain in this story. "He's a mess," one of them told me. "He's been crashing at his brother's place, drinking every night, blaming everyone but himself." I felt a brief flicker of ... something. Not quite pity. Not quite satisfaction. Maybe just recognition. That could have been my life. If I'd never found out about the inheritance, if I'd stayed, I would have wasted my entire existence propping up a man who didn't deserve it. Instead, I was free. Marcus showed up at my office in February 2024. He didn't call ahead. Just walked in, past the receptionist, into the middle of a meeting I was having with my team. "Alina, we need to talk." My team looked at me, alarmed. I held up a hand to reassure them. "Everyone, give us a moment, please." They filed out, shooting Marcus suspicious looks. He barely noticed. He was too busy staring at the office, the modern furniture, the city view, the obvious success. "Nice place," he said. "Business must be doing well. 'Tis." "What do you want, Marcus?" He ran a hand through his hair. He'd aged 10 years in the past too. Dark circles under his eyes. Rumpled clothes. The confidence I'd once found attractive was completely gone. "I messed up," he said. "I know I messed up. But I'm trying to get my life together and I need help." "What kind of help?" "Financial help." He couldn't meet my eyes. "Just a loan. To get back on my feet. I'll pay you back, I swear." I leaned back in my chair and studied him. This man who had once held all the power in our relationship, who had made me ask for $5 like I was a beggar. "How much?" I asked. Hope flickered in his eyes. 50,000 would get me started. Pay off some debts, first and last on an apartment. No. The hope died immediately. Alina, please. I'm begging you. I have nothing. I know how that feels, I said quietly. I spent 7 years with nothing. While you told me I was lucky you married me. While you made me feel worthless. While you missed our daughter's birthday to drink at a bar. I was wrong. Yes, you were. I stood up. But here's the difference between you and me, Marcus. When I had nothing, I didn't beg. I worked. I learned. I built. And that's what you're going to have to do too. So you're just going to let me suffer. I'm going to let you experience consequences. I walked to the door and held it open. Something you've probably never had to deal with before. Now, please leave. I have a meeting to get back to. He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his expression, something that wasn't quite respect, but was close to it. You really did become someone, didn't you? I always was someone, Marcus. You just never bothered to look. He left, and I never saw him again. I wasn't looking for love. After Marcus, I'd convinced myself that romance wasn't in the cards for me, but life has a way of surprising. His name was James. He was a widower, with a 10-year-old son named Noah. We met at one of Lily's soccer games. His son played on the opposing team and struck up a conversation while the kids chased the ball. That's my daughter, I said, pointing. Number 7. Ski's good? Much better than Noah. He laughed. Don't tell him I said that. There was something warm about him. Something genuine. He asked me questions and actually listened to the answers. He didn't mention money once. We started having coffee after games. Then dinners. Then, slowly, something more. What I loved about James was that he didn't need me. He had his own career. He was a pediatric surgeon, his own life, his own identity. He wasn't looking for someone to take care of him. He was looking for a partner, and so was James proposed on Lily's 8th birthday. We'd planned a party at our house, a real party, with a bounce house and a magician and all the cake a child could want. It was everything her 5th birthday hadn't been. After the guests left and the kids were exhausted and happy, James took my hand and led me to the garden. I have one more surprise, he said. You've already done so much. This one's for you. He got down on one knee. Right there among the rose bushes my father had taught me to plant when I was a girl. Alina, he said, I know you've been through hell. I know it's hard to trust again. But I want you to know that I see you, really see you. Not your money, not your success, just you. The woman who reads to her daughter every night. The woman who helps strangers achieve their dreams. The woman who somehow came through fire and emerged stronger than ever. He opened a small box. Inside was a simple diamond ring. Nothing flashy, just ... beautiful. Will you marry me? I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. The lonely girl in the coffee shop. The invisible wife. The woman who discovered her own worth in the most unexpected way. And I said yes. We got married in October 2025. It's at the same estate where the Ricardo Vasquez Foundation held its annual gala. It wasn't a huge wedding, just family and close friends. But it was perfect. Lily was my maid of honor. She walked down, the aisle scattering rose petals, grinning from ear to ear. Noah stood beside his father as best man, trying very hard to look grown up in his little suit. When I walked down the aisle and saw James waiting for me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope, not the desperate hope I'd felt. With Marcus, the hope that things might get better, that he might change, that I might finally be enough. This was different. This was the quiet hope of someone who knew she was already whole, who wasn't looking for someone to complete her, but for someone to walk beside her. You look incredible, James whispered as I reached him. It pretty good yourself. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves. His made me cry. Mine made him cry. Lily complained that we were being gross, and everyone laughed. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," and James pulled me close, I thought about my father one more time. Asterisk. Thank you, Dad, for everything. For the money, yes. But more than that, for showing me that quiet strength is still strength. That working in obscurity doesn't mean being worthless. That the people who really love you will celebrate you even when nobody's watching. Asterisk, it's now December 2025. I'm sitting in my home office looking out at the garden where James proposed. Lily is 11 now, fierce and confident and full of opinions. Noah is 12, and he's become like a son to me. The foundation has given away over $20 million in grants. My consulting business has helped launch 300 women-owned companies. And my father's legacy continues to grow. Sometimes I think about that girl in the coffee shop. The one who was so lonely, so desperate for connection, that she said yes to a man who never truly saw her. I want to tell her, asterisk, hold on, it gets better. You are not nothing. You are worth more than you can possibly imagine, not because of any inheritance, but because of who you are. I want to tell her, your father sees you. Even after he's gone. Even when you can't feel it, he's still watching over you. I want to tell her, you will find your way. Through the darkness, through the pain, through the years of being invisible, you will find your way to the light. Asterisk, and you know what? She did. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's this. Your worth is never determined by how others treat you. Marcus treated me like nothing because he was empty inside. He needed someone to look down on to feel tall. My invisibility was never about me. It was always about him. The money didn't make me valuable. I was already valuable. The money just gave me options. It gave me space to become who I was always meant to be. So if you're reading this, and you're in a situation where someone makes you feel worthless, please hear me. You are not worthless. You are not nothing. You have a future that is brighter than you can imagine, even if you can't see it yet. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you will look back on this moment and realize it was the beginning of your transformation. Hold on. Keep going. And never, ever let anyone tell you that you're not enough, because you are. You always were.